Hello everyone, and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll, where the books you read and the people who write them come to life. Today we are privileged to be joined by Rabbi Shmuel Bloom, former longtime Executive Vice President of Agudath Israel of America, a longtime askin, Daf Yomi Magachir. You now live in Eretz Yisrael.
Eretz Yisrael, Har Nov.
So it's a privilege to have you here in ArtScroll here in the United States. So and thank you for taking some time out of your schedule.
It's my pleasure to spend some time with you.
Thank you. Now, 2 years ago, you published a book with ArtScroll called On the Shoulders of Giants. I must tell you, it's one of my favorites. The story is full of fascinating stories. Whoever hasn't read it yet should take the time to get the book and read it, because it's really, like some people have said, including Rabbi Zev Leff, a letter that I saw he wrote to you, where he called it a sefer. It really is a sefer. It's a sefer of insight and musar and inspiring stories. So it's really a privilege to go through when it came out, and again, more recently. I want to start with your time in the Agudah, and not to make anyone uncomfortable, but there are people even today who are unsure of what Agudath Israel does. Does that bother you? Did it bother you when you worked for the Agudah? And what can be done to change that perception?
It bothered us, no question about it. It was, we do so much in so many different areas, but when an organization is single-focused, it's easy to say what an organization is. When Agudath Israel is created, Agudath Israel was created in the early 1900s to solve the problems of Klal Yisrael. Problems change, situations change, and there are many, many different areas that you have to be working in. So it's hard to pinpoint and say, this is what Agudath Israel is doing. But I think that one of the main purposes and goals and things that Agudath Israel does, it gets people together to sit and discuss what are the issues before Klal Yisrael and what are some of the things that we can do about, and develop solutions.
So how would you define the Agudah's mission? Is it to solve the problems of Klal Yisrael? Is that what it is?
Let's go back to the history. Why was Agudath Israel started? On the contrary, the people didn't believe that there should be an international organization. Too many problems with it. The reason it was started was because in the early 1900s, Klal Yisrael Torah was losing. We were losing the youth. Lost the daughters for sure. There was no schooling for them. He's lost the boys. They were going away. Panovich Yerov said that the learning in Panovich was better than the learning in Panovich and Eretz Yisrael was better, because in Panovich in Europe, they were sitting and learning by the Gemara, but underneath it they had a book and they thought there was something there. They were losing the youth. They were going away, and those who conceived it said, if we take the organizational skills of the German Jewry and we take the Torah leadership and erudition of Litvish Jewry, the Gedolei Yisrael, and you take the warmth of Hasidus and Polish Jewry and the rabbinic leadership of Hungarian Jewry, and put them together in one room and say, how do we solve this problem? How do we go about solving this problem? And they got them together, and first in Bad Hamburg, and then so later, ultimately, the first Knesset Gedolim in 1923, the famous picture that Baruch Hashem, you see the Chafetz Chaim coming. What was he coming to? He was coming to that meeting where everybody got together in 1923 to see how can we solve this problem. And maybe by working together, we can solve the problem.
So that was a problem years ago of losing youth. Today, the problems are different. So would you say that the Agudah has evolved as time has gone on? The mission may have stayed the same, but the execution has changed?
Every 10 years has been different. Mm-hmm. Every 10 years during my experience in the years that I was there in Agudath Israel, the 1950s was one Agudah. The 1960s with another, 1970s, the beginning of Jewish Observer and social service programs and so on. Mm-hmm. 1980s with Hatzalah, with Iran, with Russia, is the 1990s. Always the issue of facing the government and the issues, different issues that came out. Every year, Agudath Israel evolves into a different type of organization serving the needs of the community of the day.
So today, what would you say the Agudah's mission or primary responsibility is today? I know you're not there.
Right now I'm in Eretz Yisrael, obviously. I think that there was one year at an Agudah convention where I lived with the Meshech Chochmah in Bechukosai. The Meshech Chochmah talks about the cycle of Jewish history, how we come to a country and there's nothing there, and we have to build, and you build an infrastructure, and you have a ruach, and you have to build yeshivas, and you have to build Torah, and you have to build shuls, and so on, and mikvahs, and you build it up, and the children continue it, and it gets larger and larger, and as it goes, and finally you reach a point after 100 years where everything is done. And the youth have to, it says the Meshech Chochmah, a child has to feel he's doing more than his father did. So what is there to do? If there's nothing to do in Yiddishkeit, they begin to go outside. And they're 100 years in the country. They're not green anymore. They know the language, they know the culture, and they begin to go into the general culture. They begin to fall out and start children at risk. And start other problems that develop when there's nothing to build on it and you have to do something. So we have to find new challenges that the youth can do within Torah and within Yiddishkeit. And I think that's a major
so what we hear with Agudah, it's been said quite often about Klal Yisrael and Rabbi Yisrael, that Agudah is focused on the Klal, but also focused on the Yachid. But again, not to belabor the point, but think about the breadwinner, wherever he lives, in Lakewood, Montreal, Borough Park, Five Towns, wherever he is, struggling to make ends meet, just trying to get through his day, through his week, through his year, raise his family. He doesn't have the time or money to go to conventions, and he doesn't feel a connection to Agudath Israel. And he doesn't see, in a tangible way, what Agudath Israel is doing for him. Is that a problem? Is that a disconnect? When someone who doesn't know more thinks that all the Agudah does is make conventions and the Siyum HaShas, what would here's a platform to tell them, no, this is really what Agudath Israel is doing.
As I understand it, both in education, both in representing the government, you see that Agudah does those things that individual groups can't do. When you have to be able to get together. When nobody was able to talk to a policeman or to the local assemblyman, and Rabbi Sher was able to speak to a congressman, that was a big thing. But as the communities grew, each community developed their own askanim of people who were able to do that. So that can't be the only thing that they're doing. They have to do things where the tzibur working together are the things, the solutions, are the areas that they're working on. But they do, as you say, for Rebbe Yisrael also, whether it's a special education, whether it's Pirchei and Benos reorganizing now and restructuring, many things that they're doing, the Torah projects. There was a time, Daf Yomi is not just the Siyum every 7 years. The impetus of the Siyum, the purpose of the Siyum is that more people should learn Daf Yomi. I don't go any place in the world we don't see a Daf Yomi shir now. Mm-hmm. The ArtScroll is definitely has been a great help to that. But it's a matter of pushing it and arguing and siyumim and so on. Everybody, you're not learning Daf Yomi? We just spoke to somebody. He says somebody asked him to say Daf Yomi on Shabbos. He said on Shabbos. Now he said to speak every day with Zoom, with the ability to be able. You can say Daf Yomi all the time.
Speaking of Daf Yomi, there's a fascinating story about your entry into the world of Daf Yomi as a Magachir. Right. You want to share that story?
Yeah. In 1975, I was 1975, I came to work in Agudath Israel. January 20th, 1975. I remember I left January 20th, the same day that Obama became president. I left. Time to go to Eretz Yisrael.
Changing of the guards.
Changing of the guards. Rabbi Sher called me in February or March of 1975, and in his office was Rabbi Borchad and Rabbi Bessa Zechreinu Levracha. And they were sitting discussing the Siyum HaShas. There was a seventh Siyum HaShas. The previous Siyum HaShas, they had about 300 people in Beis Yaakov and Borough Park. And they wanted to do something a little more exciting, get more people to find out about Daf Yomi. The time before that, it was during a Tzirei convention, and Rabbi Aaron Kotler said, we should wash for the Suda today because it's the day of the Siyum HaShas, and nobody else knew. Right? Hardly anybody knew.
You mentioned it in the book.
Yeah.
And
he says, and now comes, so they want to take Manhattan Center, 1,000 people, and make a presentation. They asked me if I would help. I was working in Project Cope at the time, and they asked if I would volunteer to help at the time. Of course, I said yes. And they had flyers. And I was going on the subway, and I saw Rabbi Ben Sion Krohn on the subway, and I said to him, here is a flyer, we're having a siyum in Manhattan Center, we try to get some people. I was trying to go around, trying to find some people to come to the siyum. Fine, he took the paper. So a few days later, I get a call from Rabbi Kern, and he said, you know, when you gave me that flyer, you probably didn't only mean that I should come to the siyum, you probably mean that we should have started Daf Yomi Shul. So in the shul that he was davening in Rabbi Blumenkrantz's shul, we're starting a Daf Yomi Shir, and we want to have 7 people, each person to say one day, to say the daf one day. And I said, look, I just started a new job. I'm early in the morning to late at night. Shabbos. Will you do it Shabbos? I said, okay. I'll say the daf yomi on Shabbos. I hung up the phone and I started thinking, in Rabbi Blumenkrantz's shul, there's going to be a daf yomi shir. Agudath Israel of Long Island, far Rockaway, didn't have a daf yomi shir. It's going to be embarrassing. The Agudah shul doesn't have it. So I went to somebody and I asked him if he would say the daf yomi shir, and he said, okay, if you get some people to join. I went around, I got 3 people to join. 3 people said that they would come and join the Daf Yomi Shir. The night before Brochas Daf Beis, I realized I forgot to tell the person that I got the games. Mm-hmm. So I better look at it myself and prepare and say the Daf Yomi that the first day. So I said, I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, till Shabbos. And Shabbos, I went to the person, I got you the Daf Yomi Shir, there's the people are coming and so on. They said, yeah, you started already, continue. He's 35 years later.
And you're still giving?
I was still giving it. I gave it for 35 years.
35 years, all because
I was
of that.
To say, well, because I tried to get somebody else to
incredible.
say this year. And the Rebbeinu Shalom helped. We were able to, finding the time to say Daf Yomi Shir, but it changes your life. You become a different person. Hananya Kramer just mentioned, he started saying Daf Yomi Shir when he goes on a plane trip, when he goes on everything, the whole day revolves around Torah. I say Teroscha Kevav, Malach.
And you've been Zeicha, I overheard in a conversation you were having with Rabbi Brander before, that you were Zeicha recently to finish Talmud Yerushalmi as well.
Yeah, so that also...
But there's an interesting story there when you went to Reb Chaim, and you asked him, what was...
I'll tell the interesting story first with Meir Zlotowitz.
Okay.
I was at Avrami Biederman, who works here in ArtScroll, was son's bar mitzvah. And I came early and Meir came early. And the 2 of us were sitting, we were having a discussion. And I said, Meir, you're finishing up Bavli now. Shas, tremendous thing. What are you going to do next? And he said, well, thinking of different things. We're doing Ramban, we're doing maybe Yerushalmi, some other things. I said to him, you know, anything else that you do after Bavli, after what ArtScroll did for the elucidation of Bavli, anything else is downhill. The one thing that you can do is, I said a Daf Yomi Shir in Bavli before ArtScroll. So it can be done. Mm. But Yerushalmi, I couldn't open. I wouldn't know how to. If you do Yerushalmi, he says, and do the elucidation of Yerushalmi, then you've done something maybe even bigger than Bavli. The next day, he was on a plane to Eretz Yisrael. He told me afterwards, the next day he got a plane on to Eretz Yisrael. He went to Rav Yoshev, and he asked Rav Yoshev whether he should do Yerushalmi. And Rav Yoshev told him yes, and you have it in the Yerushalmis that somebody came over to him and said, but you know, it's very difficult to do Yerushalmi, and I can explain why, but that's not for now. He says it's very difficult. The Girsois, there's no Rashi. It's a very complicated elucidation, much more difficult than a Bavli. And Rav Yoshe says, yeah, they have siyata d'shmaya. They have siyata d'shmaya doing, and they did, like everything else at ArtScroll, a magnificent job. And they did. I felt when they. Oh, there's another part to that. I had told Meir, at that time I was executive vice president for the Agudah. I told Meir, if he does Yerushalmi, I know financially it's not going to be like the Bavli. So what I'll do, I'll help. The same way that the Agudah does the Siyumim and encouraging people to learn Daf Yomi Bavli, I'll get the Agudah to do the same thing for Yerushalmi. And therefore, you know, hopefully more people, you know, will also make it more economically feasible. So he said, okay. I went to the Moetzes Gedolei Torah meeting, and I come to the Moetzes Gedolei Torah meeting, and I make this presentation. ArtScroll is now doing Yerushalmi. By then, I was like the 5th time already gone through Bavli. I'm looking for new challenges. There are people looking for challenges. They're going to have Yerushalmi. The Moetzes Gedolei told Lo mit an Aleph. No, under no circumstances. Keep it with Bavli. Only do the Daf Yomi Bavli. And the one who was strongest in that was Rabbi Shechter. Right? So sein gesund. Rabbi Shechter is strong He says,
Because what was the reason? What was the opposition?
He says your learning has to be the Bavli. That's the Ikalimba today. That's what you have to do. Okay. So I went back to Meir. I told Meir, I'm sorry, I can't, produce, but Meir says I'm doing it anyway. Right? He's made its decision. The Yerushalmi comes out. I open up the Yerushalmi, the first volume. I see a big haskama for Baron Shechter. I said, what's going on over here? Right? So I take it up and I learned it, and it's a limud. Baron Shechter over there explains the difference between Bavli and Yerushalmi. And he says, Bavli is choshech. Bavli is a time of darkness. To understand Bavli, in Bavel it was hard, and understanding was hard, and you had to work hard. There had to be amelus, you had to work hard in order to be able to understand it. Avir da Eretz Yisrael machkim. Eretz Yisrael is clear. The Yerushalmi, once you get through the difficult gersois and so on,
the language,
there were then the language and the gersois. Yerushalmi is question answer, question answer. You don't have a whole sugi, maybe like this, maybe like that, and so because they had clarity. Our learning has to be with amelus. That's what Baron Shechter was saying. Our learning has to be with Bavli, which is amelus. We have the Yerushalmi also. He says actually the Yerushalmi Zeroim. He says there's no Bavli in Zeroim, and he has an interesting reason why. He says because Bavli would have done Zeroim, it was Torah, not Almanas Lasos. In Eretz Yisrael, it's Bavli, it's Liman Almanas Lasos. And today, when we're back in Eretz Yisrael, and we have a Shvius, we have a Shemitah, he says, and we have the halachas of Shemitah, and we have the Reb Chaim pushes people to very much to learn Hilchos Shvius. He says it comes alive, and the ArtScroll Yerushalmi, as they say, the masterful job that they did on that, it was able, Baruch Hashem, it was able to be zeicha to make a siyum on the
So you had a schus in that.
But
what happened when you went to Reb Chaim and you wanted to continue learning, but you were being pulled in different directions?
I had made a goal to, in a certain period of time, to finish Bavli, Yerushalmi, Mishnah Berurah, and so on. I had Hachnas Sefer Torah to celebrate my 80th birthday. And I was going to bring the whole family together, and so on. I made it. And then a few months before then, about a half a year before then, I got a call from Rabbi Shmuel Yosef Reeder, who was running the Agudath Israel Daf Yomi Siyum, and he asked me to come to help in the organization of the Siyum. And I was afraid if I do that, I wouldn't be able to reach my goals. So I went to Reb Chaim, and he asked him, which one should I do? So Reb Chaim looked up to me and says, Asu shteyam, do both of them. So I fell behind.
And did?
I fell behind. Actually, people want to blame COVID on me because I fell behind in my goals. And in January, I went back to Eretz Yisrael after the Siyum, and I sat down and COVID came, and I was in quarantine for months. I had nothing to do but sit and learn. I was able to finish both, Baruch Hashem.
Wow. Now, a hot button issue today, I'm going to change course a little, comes when it comes to elections, voting for liberals. In many from communities, there's pushback. The organizations, the establishment might back a certain candidate, a Democrat, whose hashkafas are not in line with ours. They might espouse ideals and views that are diametrically opposed to hashkafas HaTorah. On the other hand, there are certain benefits, and it seems to be a pull and a push. And I read in your book where you talk about when the Agudah invited Senator Kennedy, I believe it was, who was honored at an Agudah dinner, and Rabbi Scherer got a phone call from a Rav after the dinner. How do you bring a liberal senator to be honored at an Agudah dinner when we don't see eye to eye on many issues? I think you speak about Congressman Solars as well. We're talking about leftists. So what's your response to the man on the street, the frum man on the street, who wants to know how an Agudah or some other communal organization could back people whose values don't align with ours?
It's not a new machlokas. It's not a new issue, as I explained in the book and some of the other issues. A lot of these issues, Torah Dika Hashkafa issues, are things which come up in different circumstances from generation to generation. And there's a Masorah. There was a machlokas, was a machlokas in my time between the members of the Moetzes Gedolei Torah, for the most part, I think were pretty much in unison to that. And the spokesman probably of those on the other side was Rabbi Agudah Miller, the Chaim B'le Mashgiach, and later the Rav, in terms of how we deal with politicians. There is no politician that we agree with completely. We don't have, in Eretz Yisrael, you have Agudath Israel, or Agudath Torah representatives who listen to Gedolei Yisrael. You don't have such a Moetzes in the United States. So for the most part. So you have to decide on a politician on what basis are you going to vote for him or against it. The members of the Moetzes Gedolei Torah, by the way, they did make an adjustment in terms of honoring a dinner. What they said at the end was that although we will invite them to a dinner and speak at the dinner, but they did not, but not to honor them. We stopped at that time as we started giving them honors. But why are we voting? Voting, Moshe, Rabbi Yaakov wrote letters, good citizens, we have to vote, but we have to vote for people who are going to help our community. That's our interest in it. Do you take a balance of everything that a person does and say, on the basis of all the things that the person does, he's bad in 30 areas and 30%, and he's good in 70%. The other one is 50-50 or 60-40. So you take a balance of the person and you decide, he says, we're Agudath Israel Shtadlonis. We have to get things done for the community. It's one of the things that we do. He says we have to take a balance and try to solve it.
See, even if a candidate is, say, pro-abortion or has a stance on marriage that makes us very uncomfortable, even so that balances it out.
Rabbi Agudah Miller was the other side of the debate, and Rabbi Agudah Miller of the Hashkafa, and he says moral issues are the most important things. Is how a person stands on morality is the most important thing.
Was he a daas yochid?
He was pretty much a daas yochid. At that time.
Would you say that it's changed now with the progression, with the passage of time? Things have gotten even worse in terms of the left moving even more to the left.
But still, the question is why we vote and who we vote for. How do we make decisions? In Eretz Yisrael, somebody said very, very cute. He says, "Yesh lanu reshus hatzba'a avalo reshut bechira." We have right to vote, but not to choose. Is in Eretz Yisrael, there's a Moetzes Gedolei Torah, and the Moetzes Gedolei Torah decides vote because you're voting for frum parties. And you know that this is even if they're in the minority, but you know that these are your representatives, and these are the people that you have to vote for. You have no choice. Well, I think this one's better, that one's better. He says you have to vote there. In America, it's not the case. In America, the Gedolei Yisrael would call Rabbi Shera and ask him, who should I vote for? All right, you say, which politician is better? Which one is more important for the community? Which one gives money for the community? It's an issue. The yeshivas need money. The yeshivas get hundreds of millions of dollars today from yeshivas, and there are politicians who support that, and that's important to the community. There's a myriad of issues that have to be taken into consideration, and then you have to take the balance of everything together and say which one. And sometimes, more often than not, we have people on both sides. We want people to be influential in the Democratic Party. We want people to be influential in the Republican Party.
How about an issue of akar satayv, where let's say one candidate has been helpful in the past, but the other candidate today reflects our values, really is a better candidate? Is there a precedent for voting for someone just out of Hakar Satayv?
Hakar Satayv is a very, very big principle in Yiddishkeit and Torah and the Gedolei Yisrael. I'm trying to think of
over the years that you have such
over the years in which you see the illogical things, right? The illogical things. But if somebody did a teva for Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky 30 years ago, he would illogically support him. I'm not talking about a politician. Right. I'm talking,
that's on a personal level.
On a personal and even when it comes to community levels, sometimes they can't. They wouldn't. Sometimes would walk out of recuse themselves from a decision that has to do with somebody because they felt that they had hakar satayv to them. So that's something. Again, this is something that has to be weighed by the leadership, and will there be people who are following? It's easier, especially for young people, to follow Rabbi Agudah Miller's style. That's it. It's morality. We have to do it. On the other hand, people have responsibility for the community. Have to take everything into consideration.
Now, you were speaking about the Moetzes. You were Zeicha over the years to sit in many a Moetzes meeting with gedolim, hash out issues, and we hear the term used. So I hope you don't mind if I ask you what might be an elementary question. What is daas Torah?
Okay. That's a very good question. And
I'll add to it. What is daas Torah? How does someone get daas Torah?
Okay. So actually one of the reasons that I wanted to write the book was Rabbi Leff says that basically the book is a primer on daas Torah. I have the story with Rabbi Sorotzkin, who was I think I wrote it in the book, it was an issue in Project Cope. We had been growing. We got new contracts. We were adding staff. We kept on adding staff. And then there were cutbacks. And we had to have staff, we had to cut back. And so we had to, who goes out first? Who do we fire? Last in, first out, like you do in the unions? Do you take who's most valuable? Do you take the person who's most needy? And we wanted to ask, Agudath Israel asked us all our Shabbos, the Moetzes Gedolei Torah. We wanted to ask the Moetzes Gedolei Torah. And it wasn't practical. We weren't able to get the Moetzes Gedolei Torah together. So Rabbi Sorotzkin was in our office at one point. Rabbi Yaakov was another time. The Belusheva, they were there separately, so we asked them separately. Rabbi Sorotzkin sat down and said, look, you're asking me a question, I'll tell you my opinion. But if you want to know if this is a decision of the Moetzes Gedolei Torah or a decision of daas Torah, it's not. I come into meetings of the Moetzes Gedolei Torah and we have a chabura and we sit together and we try to understand what the right way is, and very often I'll change my mind from the discussion. So from that, there's a certain siyata d'shmaya that comes from a Moetzes Gedolei Torah that comes out to a daas Torah. But what is daas Torah? Reb Shimshon Hirsch says that when we daven, we talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we learn, HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks to us. There are people who are learning HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah their whole lives, day in and day out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's been talking to them. And when a situation is developed, and something develops, you have to say, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want? What's the interest of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And sometimes it's so different from what the laymen think. It's just the daas Torah is connected to das balabatim sometimes. You look at it physically and analytically, and you say, but if you look at it the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at it, and tries to judge the decision based on that.
So daas Torah comes from Torah?
Comes from Torah.
But at what age, at what stage, and who makes that determination?
So Agudath Israel, when they founded Agudath Israel, they were very worried. The gedolim who were starting Agudath Israel, they were worried that the secretary in the office is going to make decisions for the organization. So they said that there has to be, and there was the question of what they should be called. Right? The gedolim had signed that a Moetzes Gedolei Torah, a committee of gedolim who make the decisions for the organization. So it doesn't mean they're making decisions for Klal Yisrael. They're making the decisions for Agudath Israel. Agudath Israel doesn't move in any major way without having direction for what the Gedolei Yisrael, what is the Moetzes Gedolei Torah. That isn't all the gedolim. There are a lot of gedolim who are not in the Moetzes Gedolei Torah, and the gedolim sometimes think differently.
So I was going to ask you, what happens when you have divergent views of daas Torah? So two people who have daas Torah, is it both daas Torah? And how does the layman on the street know who to listen to?
So the big benefit to Agudath Israel is that we have a Moetzes Gedolei Torah, people who choose themselves. It's a self-perpetuating body. In other words, I don't appoint the Moetzes Gedolei Torah. The Moetzes Gedolei Torah decides who they want to take. Right. And it's a chabura of gedolim with similar thinking who decide that. Now, if somebody says to me, I'm a Talmud of Rabbi Avigdor Miller, and by the way, alive Rabbi Avigdor Miller. People say, well, Rabbi Avigdor Miller said this. Rabbi Avigdor Miller is not alive today. If there's a rov that you have today, an individual, if you ask me, in an organization, Agudath Israel has a Moetzes Gedolei Torah. An individual, if he wants to know he's doing the right thing, he should choose his gadol. He should choose his rov, and he said, I'm going to follow him right, left, or in between. Now, Rav Ruderman told me that you can have daas Torah even if you're not a gadol. He says there are people who live so much in Torah and so much involved in Torah that they get the hashkafas HaTorah that their thinking becomes Torah-dic. They think in terms of other Rebbeinu Shalom.
So you're talking about a Balbas?
He happened to be talking about Rabbi Neuberger. He was talking about Rabbi Naftali Neuberger, his brother-in-law. Right? He says he thinks Torah-dic. I would say in large measure, Rabbi Sher was like that. Rabbi Sher had enough hashkafa and learning from the Gedolei Yisrael that now he would walk into a meeting and think that the decision should be one way, and the gedolim would say that it'd be different. Chaim David Zibel tells a story over of a specific case, and they came out and they said exactly the opposite, and he was so happy. He says, because that's why I'm an Agudath Israel. I have the Gedolei Israel, but I think an individual has to take his rov, a group of rabbonim, and say, these are the people, I want to follow this there. If the Satmar Rebbe disagree on things on Eretz Yisrael, doesn't mean he's right with Agudath Yisrael, that he's wrong. This is our hashkafa, this is the way we act. And the Satmar Rebbe and Rabbi Aaron Kotler both went during the elections in Eretz Yisrael, and each one made speeches against it. One daster and the other one's not. No.
Who was your Rebbe Muvak? We talk about having a Rav, a Rosh Yeshiva, who you went to.
In terms of in my askanis, in the years of askanis, the years that after Rabbi Sheretz Patir, when I had the Moetzes Gedolei Torah, but probably Rabbi Aaron Leib Steinman.
But Rabbi Aaron Leib was later. Though.
I'm saying that in the years that I was active and so on at that time.
But you were active from 1975. Rabbi Aaron Leib was really an unknown.
In the last, after Rabbi Sheretz Patir, when Rabbi Sheretz was alive, there still was Rav Shach, there was still Rabbi Yaakov, there was Rav Ruderman was my Rosh Hashiva, right?
So you learned in Eretz Yisrael, right?
I learned in Eretz Yisrael.
So you learned by Rav Kalevsky.
I learned by Rav Kalevsky. He was my first Rebbe when I went to Eretz Yisrael, and then I became.
And you were close to Reb David Kronglas.
Yeah, Reb David Kronglas was really the one who's mashpia on me, the one who changed the direction of my life. In my high school yearbook, I said I'm going to be a mathematician.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I went to Eretz Yisrael for 1 year. I ended up staying there for 12.
Wow.
And Reb David Kronglas was the one who shaped my life and whose hashkafa I took and whose direction I try to follow.
Wow. In the book you discuss a controversy, and apparently it's not a new controversy, over Ruchnias versus Gashmias with the Agudah convention was once held at the Pioneer Country Club, and there was some pushback that it was too lavish of a venue.
No, there it was worse.
It was worse? Okay.
There was worse. There was mixed swimming. But not the week of the Agudah convention. But there was mixed swimming during the year. And how can you take people to a hotel and they're going to say, well, the Agudah convention is this, therefore I can go there. And there was mixed swimming. And it was presented to Rabbi Aaron Kotler. And Rabbi Aaron Kotler says it's very important for Klal Yisrael and for Jews in America that there should be a strong Agudath Israel, and they have to go to the nicest place available. So people should want to come there. And he said they come. Later it happened in time with Rav Chaim Levine, also with the Talmud of Rav Chaim Levine, and that's what I speak about in the book, where he said when you come to the Beis Hamikdash, the Chinuch says, why can a Balmum not be a Kayan? Why can't you do that? The Nebuch, he has a broken arm, so what's so terrible? He says, no, when you come to the Beis Hamikdash, everything has to be perfect. He says, you have to see everything in perfection. So if somebody's not perfect, even though it's a tzar for him, unfortunately he can't participate, but that has to be the point. He says, Agudath Israel has to be in a nice place where people should want to come.
The proliferation of Gashmis that we have today, and there is. I was just having a discussion about this, and we've also seen a proliferation in the giving of tzedakah. It seems to go hand in hand. How would you address that? What would the message be to young people who are now being matzliach, maybe for the first time, and they have a lot of money and they're spending it?
Yeah, I know there's, even in my time, there was somebody who's had a lot of money, he inherited a lot of money, and he said he lives a fairly lavish life. He says, I know it's not good for my children, but it helps me in my tzedakah. So,
meaning that because he spends lavishly, he's able to give more.
He feels he can give more. So I hear that. On the other hand, Rebellia spoke at an Agudah convention, Rebellia Sveig spoke at an Agudah convention, and he said, in what schus, you see, this is a little bit das terror, the thinking. In other words, why was Lakewood so much liach? Why was Rabbi Aaron, a little group of Talmidim in
First in White Plains,
coming in Lakewood and so on, and it changed chinuch in America. He says, in what schus were they able to do it? And Rebellia felt, Reb Schneer said it at a Lakewood dinner. He quoted the Ridvaz, right? The Ridvaz that says if Chicago was terrible, he ran out of Chicago. On Shabbos, he had to leave there with Sekonos Nefashos, but he said that if 10 people would sit and learn Torah Lishmo, it could change the city, it could turn around. And on that basis, he said Rabbi Aaron built it. But the success that Lakewood had all over America, Rebellia said it was because of the dachkus, because of the Torah. One person told me that he was there in the early years. He was a young fellow in the early years in Lakewood, and after breakfast they had a cup. He wanted to take a second cup of milk, and somebody slapped his hand. They couldn't afford it. Because of that, they learned Torah with that dachus. That gave them tremendous success. Wow. He started to say, but he held back. Where is it going to come from in the future, right? Based on what's going on. So he held back because you don't say that. You have to be careful, with what we say, and he was careful what we said. But there was a meeting in Novominsker Rebbe's house with some of the members of the Moetzes Gedolei Torah and with Rabbi Leibstein when Rabbi Leib was here. And they asked him different questions. We had a group of people who were asking questions in front of the Moetzes Gedolei Torah and the Torah of Steinman. And one of the questions they asked was about the tuition, the problem with tuition, high tuitions. And Rabbi Leib said, maybe the Rabbeim should take a cut in salary. so all the members of Moetzes, were taken aback a little bit. And Rabbi Shmuel Kamenetsky saved the day. He says they already took the cut in salary. Right? This is it. They're already taking a low salary. That can't be the solution. So Rabbi Leib says, he here. But he says, I have a Kabbalah from the Chazon Ish. Vos mer dachus mer hatzlocha. The person does things dachus without the gashmias and so on. He has more hatzlocha. So that's a message. On the other hand, you say it's hard to criticize. You say they're doing good things. Right.
But there is a huge problem today outside of the Gashmias of just people making ends meet. There's a huge parnasa crisis that's not spoken about enough and not addressed. I have my own theory about it, that the people, the movers and shakers very often are not impacted by the parnasa crisis as much as the people in the bottom rung, so it just doesn't get addressed enough. But is there something in your eyes, having spent 4 decades in askanis, what more could be done? Let's say you mentioned tuition. Is tuition vouchers an eitzah? Is there something that could be done more than is being done already, where a frum family can't live on $75,000, $100,000 anymore? Maybe at one time that was considered something significant. Nowadays they can't.
They tell an old story. It goes back to the time of Ben Gurion and Eisenhower. Ben Gurion asked Eisenhower, what does the average American make a month? And he says about $500 a month. And what does it cost to live? He says about $400 a month. He says, what do they do with the extra $100? He says, we don't ask any questions. Whatever they want, they can do it. Okay. Eisenhower asked Ben Gurion, and what does the average Israeli make? He says, how much does the average make? He says, about 400 shekel a month. And how much does it cost? About 500 shekel a month. He says, so he's making, we don't ask any questions. This everybody in the show in the world. Efes ki lo yeva evyon. They're always in the community. I think the poverty is not as serious. Maybe I'm not here. I don't think it's as serious. HaKadosh Baruch Hu also always wants that there should be evyonim, that we should have the schus to be able to support them. As the Gemara says that beferish, it was the part of the evyon, and that's each person has their own nisyanis. Each person has their own mazel in Klal Yisrael. Each person has their own job to do. Some people's job is to do evyon. Do I find that we did over the years with job training and so on, Project Hope, PCS, and so on, the things that we did to train people to try to get people out of poverty. And Cleveland is growing because of vouchers. Even in my time, when I left affordable housing. Yeah. Whereas I left 12 years ago, I left the Agudah 12, 13 years ago, having vouchers, it was a dream. And now in many, many states throughout the country, they're able to have it. So that's certainly helpful.
What would you say has been your biggest accomplishment personally in your years of askanis, number one? And a follow-up question to that, what has been the best advice you've ever been given?
I divide that into 2 parts. The first question. Everybody has a role in life. Reb David taught us, and that the Chazal say that lo b'schusa talya milsa, el b'mazel talya milsa. And what is the mazel? Everybody has a job in life. Every neshama, every tipa is brought before HaKadosh Baruch Hu before he's born, and is asked, what is this person's job in life? The Malach asks, and based on what his job is, his tafkid in life, based on what his tafkid, the role that he has, does he have to be rich, does he have to be poor, does he have to be smart, does he have to be simple, does he have to be strong, does he have to be weak? So you're given a tafkid in life. Till at least the time of Batira of Rabbi Shera, I felt that my tafkid in life was to assist Rabbi Shera. Rabbi Shera was a special gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Klal Yisrael. And he had special talents, special abilities, and he made a major, major impact on world Jewry and Klal Yisrael Jewry and world Jewry after the Second World and rebuilding. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave certain individuals to help rebuild or to build America after the Second World War, after the Churban in Europe. And I was in a position where I was able to make him effective by taking by being, in effect, I was the COO, the operating officer of Agudath Israel, and seeing that everything's going so that he can be able to accomplish his tafkid. After Rabbi Shera's Petira, when I had the role as the CEO of Agudath Israel, I felt there were two things that I wanted to accomplish, and I think that Baruch Hashem I was able to accomplish them. One of them, Rabbi Shera admitted to the criticism that Agudath Israel was a New York organization, basically a New York-based organization. Its leadership was New York, its functions were primarily in New York. And he dreamed about becoming a national organization, but in his lifetime it really didn't become. And after his Petira, I set as a goal to make it a national organization with offices all over the country and having an impact on the government relations and the things that are going on in the communities without the world. And I think that was probably my biggest success during that year. And a side success, when the Intifada started, the Frum community wanted to do something. And the more modern group were going to Eretz Yisrael with delegations and showing the flags, and the gedolim didn't hold that. If it's a Moetzes Gedolei in Eretz Yisrael, you don't put yourself into Moetzes Gedolei. Somebody came up with the idea, maybe we should learn Torah, the Schusa. Maybe we should have a Yarchi Kala and sit in Eretz Yisrael and learn Torah Magnum Matzah, Torah saves. So it was discussed the government, the gedolim, they wanted to know what Rabbi Aaron Leib said. And Rabbi Aaron Leib, we asked Rabbi Aaron Leib said, very true, Torah Magnum Matzah, but do it in America. Why do you have to come to Eretz Yisrael? But I explained that these are businessmen, other askanim, they're not going to give up their jobs if they're in America. If they come to Eretz Yisrael, they'll sit and learn there, and they'll learn to be a sus for Eretz Yisrael. And the Agudath Israel agreed to it. I announced it at an Agudah convention, and we started the first Yarchi Kala of American Jews coming to Eretz Yisrael. What happened was, it's interesting in terms of the development of it. I said to Rabbi Leib, after all, these are zvulans. So let them learn first Seder, or maybe something the night Seder. In the afternoon, I want to take them out to Moetzes, see different stockers, different things that are going on in Eretz Yisrael. He says, no. If they're coming to Eretz Yisrael, especially at the time of the Intifada, I said, learn 3-star. I said, okay, we'll find the Beis HaMedrash where they can go to. What Beis HaMedrash? It's in the hotel. I don't want them going out of the hotel. I mean, there was concern of the safety. He says, learn in the hotel. He says, but we want to come to visit you, to Bnei Brak. I said, no, I'll come to you. And he came, and the Ger Rebbe came over the years. And the Yisrael, when he came, and it started with 40 people, and now it's close to 500 people, because the other benefit was that the Magidei Shir that you have in Eretz Yisrael, and the Gedolei Yisrael that they have giving Shir in Eretz Yisrael don't match. And Balabatim today, and now they're copycats. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem.
And that was thanks to your initiative.
That was the thanks to.
So just one final question, as far as the greatest advice that you've gotten in your work in Askanis, that you would maybe pass on to others.
The greatest advice that I can pass on to others is to realize and understand. Let me tell it with a story. When Reb Nosson Finkel spoke in the Yarchi Kala, and it was very difficult for him, and involuntary movements, so on. He came in the last years he was coming into a wheelchair, and Reb Don Segel was the next speaker. So Reb Don Segel was standing in the doorway while Reb Nosson Tzvi was speaking, And then after he spoke, everybody said goodbye to him. He actually was going he was leaving to go to the airport to go to a fundraising trip to America. And Reb Nosson Tzvi came in and said, do you know what you just saw?
It was Reb Don
Segel.
Reb Don came in and
Reb Don said, what do you call it, to Reb Nosson, do you realize what you just saw? He said, let me start with a story within a story within a story. Is a story of Rabbi Tannenbaum in Vad HaYeshivas. It was called by the Brisker Rov on Erev Yom Kippur. And he came to the Brisker Rov. Brisker Rov calls, even at Erev Yom Kippur, he comes, and he showed him a need for an askanim that he was in charge of getting patur for the yeshiva bachram to the army. He showed him a letter somebody assigned to the army, it actually was to the Navy, and he said, I need a patur for this person. So Rabbi Tannenbaum looked at it and he said, okay, Yitz Hashem, after Yom Kippur, I'll take care of it. So the Brisker Rov says, no, today. I can't today. Du kennst, aber du willst nicht. You can, but you don't want to. Brisker Rov said, no, I can't. Everything's closed today. I can't do it today. Du kennst, aber du willst nicht. You can, but you don't want to. So, okay, what Rabbi Tannenbaum can do? So he went to the Brisker Rov, yells at him like that. He was afraid. He goes to the defense department. He goes there. Everything's locked. People are closed. So, but of course, there was one general in charge there. He went to the general. Look, I need this patur. So he said, okay, looked at it. He says, okay, we can take care of it. After Yom Kippur, I'll take care of it. He says, no, I need it today. I can't do it today. He says, du kennst, aber du willst nicht. You can, but you don't want to. They worked on it. They got it done. Came back to the Brisker Rov. The patur was in his hand. Says Reb Don Segel, what does the Brisker Rov mean when he said, du kennst, aber du willst nicht? You can, but you don't want to. What was his message? The Brisker Rov was saying that we can really do nothing. There's nothing that we can do. We can't. We want to daven Shemona Esrei. We say Hashem Sfosai Tiftach. Open up our mouth. We can't open our hands. We can't do anything without Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Hakadosh Baruch Hu does everything. What can we do? We can want. If we want, then we can accomplish. You just saw Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel. He's a sick man. He has every right to say, I'm a sick man, I'll take my medicine, I'm going to bed. But he wants. And because he wants, he built the biggest yeshiva in the world. If you want, you can do everything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Siyata D'Shema, you can get everything done. I think that's the best advice to anybody.
On that note, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay. All right.